I had felt for some time that the audience involvement with a film should really begin with the very first frame. You have to remember that until then, titles had tended to be lists of dull credits, mostly ignored or used for popcorn time. So there seemed to be a real opportunity to use titles in a new way, to actually create a climate for the story that was about to unfold.
Saul Bass revolutionized the title sequence, transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary, and since then, with the aid of new exciting technology and creativity, the artistic style has adapted into a golden age for the medium, all originating from a white and black title card of one meagre name written on.
During Bass's 40-year career, his groundbreaking work on the Man of the Golden Arm, which selectively uses colour in a simplistic but dominant way. The dark silhouettes effectively do what Occam's razor says, the fact that less is more, the simpler, the more memorable and distinct. Saul Bass had a skill and propensity for simple and memorable design, and he employed this in much of his corporate identity work throughout the 70s and 80s. His ability to simplify and communicate resulted in his 1969 logo achieving a remarkably 93% recognition. It was said that more people knew it to be the telephone company logo than knew the name of the President of the United States.
Saul Bass also pioneered title sequences with his use of kinetic typography. His first popular use was The Man of the Golden Arm 1955 by Otto Preminger, following in 1959 with North by Northwest, which uses kinetic typography effectively to maintain the audience's engagement, as well as the moving elements of motion with the lines that subtly hint at the exterior of a skyscraper. This, you can then see, has been inspired by future title sequences like Barbarella in 1968 or Monsters Inc., the modern film animation.
Sound is very important, as it was used as the first transition all the way back in the 1920s onwards, with the classical prelude introducing music into the 70s.
Sound was being used more thoughtfully near the end of the 1950s with Saul Bass's title sequences. Even though Saul Bass didn't create the music, the addition of the fast-paced, dramatic music in Psycho in 1960, or the psychedelic feeling that you get in Vertigo in 1958, shows a great deal about how the sound plays a big part into the overall title sequence, and how it engages the viewer further and creates a climate for the story, as Saul Bass says. It's similar to Saul Bass's work, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World in 1963. Plays upon a joyful decision and design, not just in visuals. To the flapping, to an explosion, even a stampede. The upbeat sound effects come together to make a circus act with the background music, with this audio to keep the attention of the viewer on the film and drag them into the cinemas, which is why they commissioned title sequences in the 1950s and exactly conveys the tone of the movie in a span of 3.5 minutes with unwavering interest. This is why Bass's design is gold, as he aims and achieves to get across a sense of madness and keep the audience continually surprised and amused. We still talk about Bass and we still mention why his legacy continues on in every single title sequence since, is because he knew exactly how to create a memorable and distinct title sequence.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
A lot of the things that were happening in the Saul Bass days, he used a lot of that. There's a lot of negative space and then a lot of iconic imagery. And so in that case, it just becomes more fun and playful, and you never really know what to expect from scene to scene.
But when Saul Bass started making credits, the credits themselves were part of the film, and they had a clarity of a modern sensibility that took you into another decade, another 2 decades ahead. Saul Bass really was the first to reflect that and destroy once and for all that old concept of opening credits.
Promotion and composition. Saul described ideal title as having a simplicity which also has a certain ambiguity and a certain metaphysical implication that makes that simplicity vital. If it's simple, it's boring, which is why he changed his motion design around the type for the sake of variety. Saul Bass's work was so innovative, he made the leap from the knowledgeable, ugly title card to an art form, from a context page in a book to a front cover, just as Saul Bass says in reference to Goodfellas in 1990 by Martin Scorsese. The credit sequence had nothing to do at all with the story. It didn't progress the psychological or emotional state of the characters in the film. It was like the opening in a classical way, the opening of a beautiful book. Those are the words of Saul Bass. Saul Bass's legacy inspired others like contemporary artist Danny Yint, who has grown up with more modern technology and has managed to do more and created many well-known title sequences today, such as being the creative director for Walking Dead, or designing the Iron Man, Sherlock Holmes, as well as Oblivion openings, and many more, which are kinetic, type, and elements. You can clearly see the references from
To the extent that it was an accurate and telling synthesis of the film and the ad campaign, these same qualities came with it into the theater. And of course, with the addition of motion and sound, it really came alive and set up the mood and the texture of the film.
You can see how valuable Saul Bass was to the medium by people like Martin Scorsese or Danny Yint. Title sequences are still alive today, and even though there are shorter, more similar title cards now coming into fashion like Black Mirror or Breaking Bad, they still exist, and that is all to do with Saul Bass and how he shaped and reformed from what was static design into flowing, moving art, an art form, which is the title sequence. Thank you for watching.